Hi, my name is Aco Vidovic. I work for IBM. In this video, I will show you how you can build a simple chatbot using IBM Watson Assistant. What is Watson Assistant anyway? This is an application which people use to create and run chatbots. Since this application runs on cloud, we often refer to it as a cloud service. And this particular cloud service runs on IBM Cloud. So we will log into the IBM Cloud first in order to work with Watson Assistant. If you don't have your IBM Cloud ID yet, you will need to create it first. And next, I will show you how we can do this. In your web browser command line, you will type in this command. And what I'll do here, I will click on this command, and this will open my web browser with a page to sign up for IBM Cloud. Now, I already have my IBM Cloud ID, but if I didn't have it, the way to create one is I will do something like this. Here, I will put my email address. Click on the arrow, and then I'll be asked to enter my name, last name, country, and password. And once I fill that out, I click on the button Create Account. After this, I will get an email into my mailbox asking me to confirm the creation of IBM Cloud account. And when I do that, my IBM Cloud account is ready. Now, let me tell you how Watson Assistant works. You use Watson Assistant service to train IBM Watson to understand three important things in every conversation. One is intent, the other is an entity or entities usually, and the third one is a dialogue. What is an intent? An intent is the purpose which a user has when working with a chatbot. So it's basically the goal they have, which is expressed in their words. In the other words, an intent, it's something you can think of it like, what does the user want from the chatbot? The other relevant piece of the conversation in a chatbot are entities. And these are subjects or objects that are relevant for the user's purpose. In other words, what is the user talking about? And a third important thing is ability to conduct a meaningful dialogue, where a dialogue is a logical flow that determines responses from a chatbot once a certain conditions are met, such as when certain entities were recognized or certain intents were recognized by the chatbot. So when you're creating a chatbot with Watson Assistant, you do it by creating your intents, your entities, and a dialogue. Let me show you this by creating now a very simple chatbot which will act as a tourist guide through a city of Budapest. I will create this in 4 steps, basically. In the first step, I will log into IBM Cloud and I will create my own instance of the Watson Assistant service, which I will use to create a chatbot. Then I will train Watson to understand one intent. And yes, it will be only one intent for this chatbot, so it will be a very, very simple chatbot. In real life, you will want to create many different intents, which will represent all different purposes which a user of your chatbot might have. So our simple intent here will be the user wants to get some information. And we will train Watson to understand how such an intent could be expressed by a user. And typically every intent could be expressed in several different ways using different words. Then we will train Watson to understand one relevant entity for the user of this chatbot. Since this will be a tourist guide, we will pick a place to eat. This is what tourists usually want to find out when they are in some new city for the first time. So this entity which we'll create will be a place to have something to eat. And there are different places where people can get something to eat, right? So it could be a restaurant, it could be a pub, it could be a cafeteria. So we'll train Watson to understand all of these. And after that, we'll create a very simple dialogue in which Watson will greet the user, understand what the user wants based on our intent in the entity, and suggest a place to eat. All right, so let's do it. So what I'll do next is I will log into IBM Cloud, and I will do it using the same link which I did before. So I'll click on the link, and here I will click on the link Login, where I need to provide my IBM Cloud user ID and a password. And once I do that, I'm now being logged into the IBM Cloud. And once the login is successful, I'll see on my screen my IBM Cloud console. Now, let's create an instance of the Watson Assistant service for this demo. The way how I'll do this, I will click first on the catalog here in the menu. And the catalog is really a list of all services which are available on the IBM Cloud, where one of them is Watson Assistant. And I will find the Watson Assistant here under the AI category, which stands for Artificial Intelligence. And I will click on the Watson Assistant here. And I will be asked to give some name to my particular Watson Assistant service. So I will call it Test Chatbot for Aco, for example. And here I can pick where do I want this service to run physically. So let me pick Germany, is the closest to me. And all the other fields I will leave as they are, and I will click on button Create. Click on the Accept to the next message. And now Watson is creating an instance of the Watson Assistant service for me. And here it is. This is my Watson Assistant service instance. I will launch the tool to start working with it. So I'll click on this button, Launch Tool. And this tool is the tool which is used to develop chatbots here. So next I will click on the tab Workspaces. And here I already see one workspace which was created by Watson for me. This one already has a sample chatbot. But what I will do here, I will create a new workspace for my sample chatbot, which I'll build now. So in this Create a New Workspace box, I click on Create. And I will give some meaningful name to this workspace, something that will help me remember what it is weeks later, for example. So I'll call it Sample Chatbot. And that would be September 2018. I can put in some description, select the language, and I'll just leave that. I'll work with English language, and I'll click on Create. And here is my workspace in which I will create all the things that I need to build a chatbot. The first thing that I need to do is create one intent. So let's create this one intent now. I'll click on the button Add Intent. And I'm asked first to provide the name to this intent, which I'm creating now. The intent names always start with a hash sign. This is how Watson recognizes that something is an intent. If its name starts with a hash sign, it knows this is an intent. So Our intent will be about a user asking for some information. So I'll give this intent a name which suggests this is about asking for information. So let me call it tell me about. And I can add this here description, which is very helpful. And I'll say user is asking for some information. And I'll create intent. And here I need to provide some examples of how such intent can be expressed by a user. So when they ask for information, they could say, can you tell me? This would be one way to word it. And I'll click add example. And I will add another example, how a user could express the same objective. They could say, I am looking for, and I click add example. Or they could say, tell me about, click add example. Or they could say, do you know? And I click add example again. And I could go on here, but I'll stop. So what I'll do next is I'll click on this blue arrow in the menu at the top, the arrow pointing to the left. I'll click on that one to come back to my intents page where I see this intent which I have just created. It's here, and I see that I just did it. I see it has 4 examples. Now, I will create one relevant entity for this dialog. And again, in real life, there'll be more entities that we use, but I'll use just one to make it really simple. So I will click here on this Entities tab, and I'll say Add Entity. And here I first provide the name to this entity. And for Watson, all entity names start with this @ sign. So since this entity will represent places to eat, I will just call it food. It's easy to remember. And I'll click create entity. And now my entity food, this could be actually different things, right? It could be a restaurant, it could be a pub, and so on. So here I'm going to provide values for this entity food. So I'll say one value could be a restaurant. And this value could have synonyms. I could say, if a user says restaurant, or if they could say a pub, for my purpose, this is a synonym. These are 2 places where they can get food. And I can get more synonyms. So if I click on this plus sign, I can add another synonym. I can say, well, cafeteria. That could be the same thing in terms of it's a place to eat. So once I have enough synonyms that I'm happy with, I click on add value. And I could add another value here. I could put here some specific place to eat. It could be, for example, pizzeria. And I could put here, again, synonyms for pizzeria, or I could do something really interesting. Click on this little arrow that points down, and I click on pattern, and the pattern means anything that is consisting of this, what I have here, PIZZ, that is my pattern. So always consider this will be about pizzeria and pizza. So take this as a value which has a pattern. So I click add value here. And I could go on, but I'll stop here and I'll click on the blue arrow pointing to the left in the top menu. And this will bring me back to my workspace. So let's create our dialog now. In my workspace, I'll click on the tab Dialog. And Watson will create a very simple dialogue for me, consisting of 2 nodes in a dialogue only. And it gives a name to these nodes. The first node is named welcome, and the second node is named anything else. What is a node in a dialogue? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say you and me speak. And I start and I say, hi, how are you? That was the first node in our dialogue. In this node, I started the dialogue by greeting you and asking you how you are. And then you could answer maybe as, well, hello, Atso, I'm good, how about yourself? That would be a second node in our dialogue. In that second node, first you listened what I said, you registered what I said, you understood what I said, you decided how to answer me, and you answered. All these happened in this second node in a very short time. And it's like that in a chatbot as well. So Watson created a simple dialogue with 2 nodes only, and we can use this dialogue to expand it, to add nodes, and change nodes, and do whatever we want, basically. So let's try this simple dialogue, which Watson created for us, by clicking on this button, Try it. So I'll click on that, and a black box open. And in this black box, I can try my dialogue. So the dialogue starts with a message, hello, how can I help you? This is the first node in the dialogue where Watson decided to start the dialogue like this. So let's try it. Let's just type in something. I could say, hi, who are you? Press enter. And what I see here, I get the answer from Watson, and the answer is, I didn't understand. Can you try rephrasing? And then above the answer, there is some very useful information for me, which tells me what was Watson thinking and doing. So here in this gray box, I see, first I see my input, what I just said. And then in the blue box, Watson would show any intents or entities which it recognized. And in this case, it did not recognize any relevant intent or entity, so it tells me irrelevant. Now, let's ask Watson something which we expect it should already understand, since we gave it one intent and one entity. So let's say I am looking for museum. Okay, well, the answer from Watson is still not very helpful. It's still saying I'm not understanding. But here I can see that at least it did recognize one entity, and that was the entity I created since I said I'm looking for. Well, how about I would say I'm looking, or let me put it differently here. How about I say, tell me about restaurant. Well, now it did recognize both the entity, which is here, food, and the intent. It still doesn't give me any meaningful answer, but we are making some progress here. So the reason it's not giving me any meaningful answer is I need to do some work on the dialogue, which I will do next. Let's now work on our dialogue and teach Watson to answer to us in some meaningful way. So I'll click back here on this tab, Dialogue. And in the node named Welcome, I'll click on these 4 dots, which open a few options for me. And I'll say Add Node Below. This will add another node, and it will be below the Welcome node. So this will be the second node that Watson will use in our dialogue. Whenever it starts a conversation, Watson first opens the welcome dialogue, and then it goes searching other dialogues from top to bottom, sorry, other nodes in a dialogue from top to bottom to find out how to react. And here we will teach it how to react. So let's give a name to this node which we are just creating, and we can call it suggest a restaurant. And we will first tell Watson, well, in what case should it trigger this node? In what case should it use it? In this field which says if bot recognizes, we will say, okay, if you recognize our intent, which we created, and the name of the intent was tell me about, now click enter. So if you recognize this intent, and I click on the plus here, so the plus sign will bring me and if you recognize the entity food, this is my condition now for this node. I click on enter. Well, and here I say how to respond. In the field then respond with, I'll say suggest, what should the Watson suggest here? Well, this is a tourist guide in the city of Budapest, and I'll go just to TripAdvisor or some other place to find few restaurants, and I'll check them, and if I like them there, I'll put them here. So here are a few sample restaurants which I'll put here, and I'll say here, I recommend one of these fine restaurants, and here are these names, which I got on the internet. I really don't know that. So here we have a new node. Watson should now suggest us a few restaurants in case it recognizes our intent, tell me about, and our entity food. Let's test if that works. So I go back to my trying out the dialog black box, right? And I'll first delete all of these old messages by clicking clear. I click clear, and the Watson starts all over again. It starts with its regular greeting. Hello, how can I help you? Let me say, I am looking for that, for a restaurant. Click enter. And Watson is actually recommending me those restaurants which it was actually trained to do. And I see the reason why it's doing that. It did recognize our intent, it did recognize our entity, and based on these criteria, it triggered the second node which we just created. And the last thing I want to do in this simple demo is some cosmetics work. I will change the welcome node and the anything else node to give us a little bit of a different input and different feedback. So let me first click on the welcome node. And I want Watson to greet me differently. So here in this place which says then respond with, I'll change that to say, hello, I am your virtual guide to Budapest. You can ask me about interesting places in our beautiful city. So I want Watson to greet me this way. And if I wanted to, I could also add several different ways how to greet me by putting it here where it says enter response variation, but I'll just use this one now, okay? And here I want to change the anything else node. I didn't tell you yet what the anything else node is used for. The node with the name anything else will be used by Watson in any case when it doesn't recognize the user's input. So when we tested it in the beginning, it often told us, I didn't understand, or can you reword your statement? That was because this node was triggered. So let me change the way how the anything else node works by giving it different phrases. So I'll change this one to, I didn't understand. You can ask me about places to eat, for example. And I can change the second one. Can you reword your statement? I'll say, I'm a tourist guide in Budapest. I know about interesting places in this city. And I may choose to have just these two different ways how the anything else node responds. I can choose to delete this one. So I can delete it by clicking on the minus sign. So I'll do that here. So now let me try what we have now. I will again clear all of the old messages by clicking the button here. And I see I get a different greeting. That is because I have changed the welcome node. So let me try something which I believe Watson will not understand, just to see how the anything else node works now. So I'll say just something, click enter, and I get the answer from the anything else node, which is the answer as I have just defined. So this concludes our simple demo. It was a very simple demo because the dialogue was very short. We had just one entity, just one intent. In the real life, you'd have more entities, more intense and more complex dialogue. But you would do it in a similar way, using the same tool as I used here. And if you want to learn more about how you can build a real-life chatbot with Watson Assistant, I strongly recommend to take this course, and you see the link to the course here. It's called Build Your Own Chatbot. It's a free online course with video lectures and exercises which can help you to practice your skills. And with this, I thank you for your attendance and wish you happy chatbot building.